over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show training camp. In the rearview mirror, exhibition season in the rearview mirror. All eyes focused on Thursday and the season opener against the Dallas Stars, a depleted Winnipeg Jets lineup on Thursday against the Dallas Stars. We'll get into that to start off this morning. Good morning, Mr. Ginsburg.
Good morning.
Ginsburg, as it were to be. Joining me so far on this Saturday morning, Dave M. running a few minutes late. He will join us soon and will be fined accordingly in the Illegal Curve Kangaroo Court.
Absolutely. And, you know, if last night's preseason game is any indication, we're in for some high-scoring games this year. That was actually a pretty entertaining shootout, to be honest with you. It went into the seventh round, obviously.
I still don't know how the winning goal went in.
Yeah, it's a good point. Dustin Wolf was kind of, you know, shooting himself in the foot, so to speak, there, right? Because it looked like he had the save, but a little bit concerning. I don't know if you want to start off with that, Drew, but a little bit concerning with what Scott Arniel said about Cole Perfetti and his injury after the game.
We have to start with that. So anytime a player gets injured in the exhibition season, and the Jets, we know, are already down Dylan Samberg 6 to 8 weeks with his broken wrist. Well, that happened earlier. Was that, I think, last Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, when that happened? Yep. And so we'll get into that. Of course, the impact all throughout the Winnipeg Jets lineup and their defensive corps over the course of the next couple of hours. And Jonathan Toews left the game in Minnesota earlier this week. He's day-to-day, but we haven't seen him back on the ice yet, so who knows about his status for Thursday night. And you're thinking you're already down what looks like 2 regulars for the opener. You know, 3 regulars, including Adam Lowry, who, of course, we didn't expect to see for a little while this season. And then it goes from bad to worse yesterday for the Winnipeg Jets. Dylan DeMello leaves the game. He takes a stick to the neck in the first period, and he leaves. Fortunately for Jets fans, fortunately for Dylan DeMello, fortunately for the Jets blue line, that was a precautionary decision. He sounds like he should be fine for Thursday night. The more concerning one is Cole Perfetti. It's the second period. He goes to finish a check, and you can see that his right leg bends awkwardly, and you can see that he's flexing it. The video is available. You know, I can even pull it up here on the screen for anybody who hasn't yet seen it. Might as well. Let's do that to sort of see if I can do this in a quick fashion here. You'll see the injury to Cole Perfetti. He goes in to make the check. He lands a little awkwardly, and watch as he's skating away. You can sort of see him right there where he lifts the right leg. He's bending at the waist. He's sort of, again, flexing it as he's skating to the bench. Not a good situation for the Winnipeg Jets second line winger, a player that the Jets, of course, are hoping for a whole heck of a lot from this season. The report from Scott Arniel, quote, with regard to the Perfetti lower body injury, we got to get him home here. First glance doesn't look great. We'll see when we get home. Hopefully it's not as bad as we are hoping. That is the report on the Jets' Cole Perfetti. Just an absolute terrible situation if he misses any significant time for the Winnipeg Jets early on this season. And it's certainly based on the ominous words from Jets head coach Scott Arniel. It certainly sounds like it would be a surprise to see Perfetti in the lineup on Thursday night against the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, it's looking like that right now based on what Scott Arniel said. And, you know, you've already got Dylan Samberg out of the lineup. You've obviously got Captain Adam Lowry, who's still recovering from his off-season surgery, right? So, like, these are significant injuries. And, you know, thank God that Dylan DeMello is not going to be seriously injured, because when you're talking about DeMello, that's one of your best defensive defensemen along with Samberg, right? So, yeah, I mean, you know, this is all unfortunate. it happens. We've seen, quite a bit of injuries across the NHL in the preseason. And this is just another reason why I think they're moving towards less preseason games and then adding the two regular season games. As far as I'm concerned, Drew, you could easily have like 1 or 2 preseason games, like just limit it to that.
I agree. I mean, it is. I mean, 6 is obviously a ridiculous number, and the NHL and the Players Association have agreed upon that. I mean, it's criminal to be charging fans, regular price for these games, which we've already discussed for years ad nauseum. So there's no need to sort of, get back into that. But you can see that for the Winnipeg Jets team this year, and this is a Jets team, with all due respect, that really doesn't need the preseason games. They're not proving much. I mean, we're talking about, jobs, maybe the 13th forward is what we're talking about with regard to the preseason game. So
does any team really need more than 2 though? That's my argument. That's why I agree with you, Drew. Like, they're reducing it going to 6, but you should reduce it even more and maybe go to 2 or 3. That's all I'm saying.
No, they're reducing it to 4. You mean?
Sorry,
6. It was the 6 this year. They're reducing it to 4.
Reduce it from 4 to 2 or 3. They're not going to do that. Maybe they will, several years from now. But I mean, just look at across the NHL, how many injuries you've seen.
It's wild. I mean, and injuries can happen anytime. We saw it in Florida with Barkov. That injury happened in the midst of a practice, in the midst of a general drill, and you can't, of course, bubble wrap and avoid every possible scenario. We acknowledge that. But boy, oh boy, if you're the Winnipeg Jets and you're looking back at this preseason and this training camp, a training camp that really didn't have a lot to be decided and determined. It was more about sort of fine tuning than it was and making any large roster decisions. You're going to now start Thursday night and Saturday against 2 teams, Thursday night against Dallas, Saturday afternoon, that weird 12:30 start against the LA Kings, 2 teams that should be playoff teams, I think, in the Western Conference. And you're likely to be without 3 regulars, maybe 4 regulars. I mean, that is a uphill climb to have to battle through. So let's, Ezzy, talk about this part of it, given that it's the newest part. That's the Perfetti injury. We know that the Jets have a lot of depth at forward. They don't have, somebody with the high-end talent of Cole Perfetti that can immediately sort of step into that role if he's out of the lineup for any significant time. And we don't know. I mean, we can all look at the video, we can all speculate, we can all pretend that we're doctors, but we don't know. So it's not worth speculating on how. We
don't know, Drew, but we're also going off of what Scott Arniel said.
Absolutely.
And Scott Arniel could have easily said it's nothing.
He could have said it's precautionary, which is what he said for Dylan DeMello.
Exactly, but he did say it doesn't look good. So we have to assume that means that there's a good chance that he could miss some time early in the season. That's what we're going off of.
No question. I would agree wholeheartedly with that. It seems like if you say it doesn't look good and they, hopefully it's not as dire as the initial comments from Scott Arniel. But if it is, you would have to assume you're looking at a weeks-long injury as opposed to a day-to-day sort of situation. If he comes back tomorrow, the team is off today. When he comes back tomorrow and says Cole's just going to be day-to-day, well, I think everyone will breathe a sigh of relief. That would be a something most people would sign up for. Right now, most Jets fans would sign up for it.
Well, this is interesting because if you watched last night's preseason game, which obviously we did, and Parker Ford scores a goal, and he's already pushing for that kind of.
He may have made this team.
Well, especially with Perfetti injured, that's the thing, right? Like Parker Ford, there's a good chance that both Parker Ford, David Gustafson have made this team.
Yeah, they're your 12th and 13th forwards, basically, is what it boils down to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they could be the 11th and 12th forwards. You take out Taves, you take out Perfetti, you have 2 forward spots that need to be filled by somebody.
And does that mean that one of Brad Lambert or Nikita Chibrikov makes the opening night roster? It's looking like it's possible. That's where I was going with this. It even without the Perfetti injury, and keep in mind, it was no mistake. Parker Ford was centering that 4th line with Tanner Pearson and Cole Koepke. That wasn't a mistake. They could have started Brad Lambert there. They could have started Nikita Chibrikov there, and they went with Parker Ford, and he played really well. What I love the most about Parker Ford is he just provides energy, and he gives you an honest work ethic.
You know who he is. I mean, Brandon Tanev, when he came to the Winnipeg Jets as the unrestricted free agent, he made a name for himself by just being a whirling dervish out there on the ice. You knew that the effort was going to be immense on every single shift, that you were going to notice him running around the ice, not like a lunatic, not running around trying to take players' heads off and being a detriment to your team, but he was going to go out there and he was going to impact the game and the shifts that he had the opportunity to do. Parker Ford has the same mentality. And frankly, I think the Jets could use a player like that, a bit of an agitator, just a presence a little bit. Now, he's not the biggest guy. He's not a goon. He's not going to be expected to, drop the gloves on every night or anything along those lines. But he's the kind of guy who's going to finish every check and he's going to finish every opportunity. So guys like that get noticed by teams because every team wants a guy like that. A guy who's got a good head on his shoulders in terms of hockey sense and how to play the game responsibly, but with that energy. So that's why he's back and making an impact on this Winnipeg Jets team. Frankly, that's what the Jets were hoping for from Brandon Tanev last year when they acquired him at the deadline. But you can see with Tanev that playing that way takes its toll on you. You're not the same player you were 5 years ago. And I thought that was evident with Brandon Tanev last year. But if you can get a younger version of Brandon Tanev and similar MO, similar approach to the game.
Similar college, right?
Similar
Both
college,
went to Providence.
Exactly. The parallels are obvious, as we've talked about.
No, you're bang on, Drew. He is like a Brandon Tanev 2.0, if you will, right? And I think he deserves it. Look, Parker Ford has been a guy who has played the last couple seasons with the Moose, and he's earned it. And you love to see guys that come through the AHL and earn their job and have a great training camp. And we talked about that a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of training camp when we were saying, like, for Parker Ford, this is an opportunity for him to grab that 13th forward spot. And it looks like he might even be in the top 12 to start the season, depending on Taves and Perfetti's injuries, right?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So let's look at that situation. Let's look. I mean, yes, Taves is day-to-day, but day-to-day, who knows how long. Oh, look who's decided to join us finally this morning. Nice of you to show up. 9:13. It's okay. Apparently in Minuk land, that's a different time altogether.
Well, 7JP7B said, "Where's Dave?" So I had to show up. That's the only reason I'm here. No,
that's what
technology snafu, unfortunately.
I don't know. Did he say that? I don't know if he said that.
He did in the chat. It's over there in the bottom right of the chat. In any event, nice of you to join us, Dave. So I'm just giving.
I've been listening
for
the record while I was trying to get my technology working. I did listen to you guys talk about Cole Perfetti and
Do we need to start a GoFundMe to get Dave a new computer or something?
No. It's all good. Okay. All good.
Anyways, we were talking, of course, about the Perfetti injury and the impact that injury is going to have and the residual impact that's going to have on the Jets roster after training camp, because jobs may now be available that people didn't necessarily think were going to be available due to the Perfetti injury, potentially due to the Taves injury. But let's go to that second line for the Winnipeg Jets. Yeah, that's what most people were expecting it to be.
Two-thirds of it are missing, Drew.
Right. The two-thirds that you sort of thought were going to be the more reliable or the more assured two-thirds of that line, even with Taves having an asterisk next to that. But now Gus Nyquist is the only last man standing there, which is sort of, it's not funny from the Jets' perspective, but it's sort of, amusing in a bit of a gallows sense of the word. Mm-hmm. But how do the Jets now start filling in these gaps? Now, we know the forward depth is the asset. That's the strength of the team. The depth that they have 1 through 12, 1 through 13, 1 through 14, that's what they've relied on for the last number of years. So, Dave, how do the Jets start to fill in the gaps on that second line? Scott Arneal's comments yesterday, certainly post-game, were ominous regarding the status of Cole Perfetti over the next little while.
This is why you don't make your 23-man roster set before your final preseason game, because, of course, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't want to lose guys to waivers. So as I heard Ezzy say, this is maybe a stay of execution for some guys who, would have maybe either found themselves on waivers or like a guy like Parker Ford been sent down to the Manitoba Moose. So, I mean, again, does it become an Alex Iafallo gets moved up? Do they keep Brad Lambert if they think that they need someone who has like an offensive, a little higher end offensive talent and throw him? Maybe this is we always talk about it, right? Like this is an opportunity for somebody. Now, the Jets could kind of go the tried and true tested way that we've seen them do so many times, right, boys? Which is, okay, Alex Iafallo needs to move up and, we'll have someone like a Parker Ford be on that fourth line or third line or wherever he's going to find himself. or Nikita Chibrikov. Like, I don't know. Like I said, those guys are all still here for a reason. The coaching staff clearly likes them. So those, they were going to, when we looked at the final roster, and if you even looked at the guys who were skating at Hockey for All Center yesterday, who weren't part of the game group,
Right.
it kind of led you to be like, okay, DiVincentis, Walker Dewar, Brad Lambert, Nikita Chibrikov, those are your guys who are going to not necessarily, even like Colin Miller was skating, right? So those are your guys who are kind of like your bubble guys.
Your bubble guys.
And so that seemed like the writing was on the wall. Okay, the Jets had four moves to make from the roster, or 5 moves, was it? Sorry, they're at 28, so they have to get to 23. So they have 5 moves to make, but DiVincentis is one of them, so that's really just 4 more moves to make.
Right.
But now, with respect to Perfetti, and look, the only thing I'd say on Perfetti is obviously what O'Neill said is ominous. I would agree with you, Drew. When I heard the comments post game, I thought it was not a great thing. But at the same time, like, he hasn't been examined. They haven't. I mean, he's been examined, but he hasn't been like, they need to do like a scan,
imaging, and all that.
So we don't actually know what the extent of it is.
Is this the Pan Am Sports Clinic?
Well, we're close to that, Ed. So I mean, in theory, we could be, but we did not have a conversation with Dr. McDonald in advance of the show. But I just think like it's one of those things. Like, they'll get him back here. We'll see what the extent of it is. But yeah, I mean, it didn't look good, and I I saw you showed the highlight that we posted on legalcurve.com, and it's certainly it's unfortunate given all the talk last year of how he stayed healthy, and it was such a critical thing for him to play, what he at the games that he did. But at the end of the day, you just have to figure out, like, hey, like, you can cry into your milk, but there's no value to that. You're gonna have to find someone who's gonna take his spot. And ultimately, are the Jets gonna go with what they've traditionally done, which is a veteran Ezzy, a tried and true guy like an Iafallo, who, like I said, when Velarde was hurt, they moved him up into that first line with Scheifele and Connor? Or are they going to go with, a young, unproven guy who's shown flashes but has more upside in terms of
they're going to go
abilities?
They're going to go with Iafallo. I mean, I would be surprised, Dave. I don't think Brad Lambert has necessarily had a particularly great training camp, to be honest with you. I'm not saying he's been bad.
No,
I'm just saying, like, if you want to juxtapose Lambert versus Parker Ford, for example, Parker Ford has had a great training camp, and you can say, okay, he's earned a spot on the Jets' top 13, right?
Yeah.
And so if I'm looking, and I have the depth chart here right now, like, I'm looking, if Perfetti's out and Iafallo moves up, and let's say Cole Koepke moves up to the third line, for example, or Tanner Pearson moves up to the third line, there's an opening on that fourth line for somebody to play with Parker Ford and one of Pearson and Koepke. And I'm looking at Nikita Chibrikov, Dave, and I'm thinking, if Perfetti's out, he's the guy that makes the opening night 23-man roster.
Over Gustafsson.
No, I think Gustafsson I have as the 13th forward.
No, I know, but I'm saying you'd have him in the lineup versus you'd have Chibrikov in the lineup and Gustafsson as 13.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I would be surprised if I agree with what Ezzy said there about Brad Lambert not really having an impactful training camp.
Sure. I would agree with that.
He's been there till the end, but he hasn't won a job. He hasn't said, wow, there hasn't been anybody who's been writing. And Dave, you've been at I think you live at Hockey for All Center now, but he's been, you've been there ad nauseum, and nobody has ever said that Brad Lambert has really stood out in this training camp. And I think that's a problem for Brad Lambert, to be perfectly honest, because the team wants him. It's not like there's not an opportunity there. Nikolai Ehlers left. Everyone can see where the opportunity is. Go out and win me a job, and he hasn't been able to do that. I mean, I don't know if it's a function of, just an inability to play up at a higher level, or having the same bad habits that you sometimes have when you're a junior kid who can only get by strictly on your raw skill. Can't do that at the NHL level. I mean, you need to be more impactful than playing 1-on-5. That's not how the NHL works. He hasn't, of the guys you just mentioned, I would not say, I would think that he hasn't won the job any more than any of those other guys. And in fact, those other guys have probably been more impactful. Now, there's probably an argument to be said that for a guy like a Chibrikov, a guy like a Ford, it's maybe easier to be noticed in training camp because of the slog that it is, and sometimes the and how, as you talk about it, Dave, some of those exhibition games can be pretty messy.
Yeah.
And when your game, and chaotic, that's the word you use. And when your game is simple, it's almost easier to play in a chaotic game than it is in a structured game that you would see on a regular NHL night in the middle of the season, where structure is key and everything else. The chaos of preseason, I find it almost, it's what you do during the training camp and the skates with your teammates are almost more impactful, I think, evaluation wise, than how you perform in these meaningless exhibition games where you sometimes might be playing against the AHL versions of a lot of these other teams. I mean, that's almost the do your eyes deceive you aspect of training camp that a lot of these evaluators, fortunately, the teams know this better than anybody, that they have to be evaluating it almost in a different manner than the straight game itself.
Well, to the point you're making, if you watch, when you are at Hockey for All, you see all the brass is lined up along the glass, like upstairs in the restaurant.
Are they banging on the glass? Are they glass bangers?
They're not glass bangers.
Okay, you hate glass bangers.
I'm not a glass bang. Even if they're management, I would have gone up and said, do not glass bang. But the fact of the matter is
presented them with the article you wrote how many years ago or
I think
about glass bangers.
It's one of the most popular articles in IC history.
It was. And it had nothing to do with that Florida fan. But the fact of the matter
pull it up right now.
But the fact of the matter is that you are right, Drew. They are watching and they're evaluating. And look, Brad Lambert didn't have a good year. Now, nobody on the Manitoba Moose had a good year. Parker Ford didn't have a particularly strong year until he had kind of that good run where he scored in the NHL. He went on, I think, a 7 goal in 7 games or something of that nature. 7 goals in 10 games, I think. But the fact of the matter is that, a lot of guys didn't have good years. Now, to my mind, Brad Lambert goes down to the Moose. They're way better this year. They've got way more veterans who are going to have a positive impact on him. He'd have a ton of confidence. So when he gets recalled, I'm sure he's going to be feeling good because they're going to be scoring. He's going to be contributing. That would be my thought process. And if everyone would have remained healthy, I think that would have been the most ideal situation. Now, the only thing I will say is if folks remember, Ville Heinola, who at 18 years old was pressed into service and played, what did he end up playing, 50 games in his rookie season, unexpectedly because of all the injuries that the Jets D had suffered that year. So he got into those games and he looked good. So sometimes, a little bit of pressure can create a diamond. And I'm just saying that maybe that ends up being good for Brad Lambert, or to your point, guys, they just go with the tried and tested route. They take a guy like Alex Eiffel, they move him up. They keep Parker Ford. They keep a David Gustin. They keep Nikita Chibrikov because Chibrikov would fit more on that fourth line, right, Ezzy, than a Lambert. So, and then you send Lambert down and you say, listen, same as Elias Salamonson. You're gonna get a ton of opportunity. You're gonna play big minutes. You're gonna feel great about your game. And then when we call you up, you're gonna be ready to play in the NHL.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Elias Salamonson because when DeMello left the game, that's where my head immediately went. I thought, okay, well, this means that if DeMello's going to be out, then Salamonson's for sure going to get recalled by the Jets, right? But obviously, it looks like DeMello's going to be okay. By the way, I pulled up just for a little non sequitur here. I pulled up Glass Bangers, True Fans Are Morons, written by Dave Minuk on May 1st, 2009.
Wow.
Is the concept that the crowd acts as the sixth man on the ice a fact, or is it just one more cliche that hockey players repeat so fans can feel like they are a bigger part of the game than they really are? Let me tell you, back in 2009, Dave was bringing hard-hitting journalism.
Did you win a Pulitzer for that one there, Minuk?
I really should have. It's a shame, It really is a shame that as you said, that is one of my most read articles on a little site called illegalcurve.com of all time. So yeah, it was. But hey, every playoffs, what do people complain about? Glass bangers, especially that dude in Dallas. Especially that dude in Dallas.
I mean, I don't know that. I mean, you have individual glass bangers that you're now beefing with.
I don't necessarily.
That's taken to a next level.
I don't beef with them per se. I just would have,
You just don't like what he brings to the table.
Enough.
In any event, continue on without your non sequitur, Ezzy. I think you were going to make a point. I'm not sure what it was, but I think you were planning on making a point.
Was I? I'm not sure if I was, but I mean, look, I think what we're trying, to kind of conclude the first half an hour of the show here, what we're talking about is, the Jets are going to have to rely on their depth even more. Even if Taves and Perfetti were healthy, and the Jets were, and let's say Sandberg is healthy and the Jets were completely healthy. We already talked about it, that this team is less top end talented than they were in previous years just by having Ehlers out of the lineup alone. Now, yes, Nyquist scored a goal yesterday, and I think, he's looked pretty good. We'll see, how the second line looks without Taves and Perfetti. I mean, again, we don't know if Taves is going to be ready for Thursday, but I mean, it looks like there's a good chance Perfetti's not going to be ready for the Thursday season opener. But it goes back to what we've kind of been talking about the last 3 weeks about training camp. I mean, this is an opportunity. Parker Ford, I think, guys, we can safely say he's made this team, right? Based on his play and yesterday. And
Well,
I think that was before Perfetti got injured.
I always hesitate because remember 2 years ago when Parker Ford was leading the Jets in preseason points, he still got sent down, despite the fact that everyone wanted him to be the 13th forward. So, but
now he's got 2 years of pro experience, right, Dave? Like now, and I just think, like, again, maybe I'm just biased because I kind of personally have him as making the team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's earned it. I really do think he's earned it based on, what he's shown the Jets in the preseason so far.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it. I know. I mean, again, I've always liked Parker Ford. I mean, even on the first goal by Hayden Fleury, what's he doing? He's standing in front of the net, creating a screen, which we've seen him do for the Manitoba Moose, multiple times throughout the course of his career. So I think he's a hard worker. I think he's a banger and a crasher. I mean, He's not a guy who's going to go up and replace Cole Perfetti, but he's got some talent. He's got a nose for the net. He didn't look out of place when he got recalled last year and got his first opportunity, scored in Boston, obviously, played a few more games, and then, of course, went down to the Moose, played some games, and then got injured and was done for the season. But, yeah, I think every year he's gotten better. And so I would not be surprised. I think in the normal course, especially based on his waiver exemption status for this year, that he probably would have been a waiver casualty. So the Jets didn't have to risk losing anyone else. But because, yeah, you're right. Guys, again, like I'll go back to the Ville Heinola situation. I mean, he not won a job, but he received a job because of so many injuries, right? So, and that created an opportunity. Now, it didn't do him very good because of his own injury history subsequently. But the fact of the matter is that, yes, you can use this as a springboard to seizing it. And that's always what you want, right, guys? Like, again, you're never going to have a perfectly healthy season. So the Jets are dealing with a rash of injuries right now. But, as you said, they lost Nikolai Ehlers last year. They lost Gabriel Velarde last year. They lost Adam Lowry last year. They still ended up winning the President's Trophy because they won through their depth. We'll see if they can do that again this year.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. That's where I was going to take the conversation. I was going to say, we've talked about maybe how this will change the machinations of the roster and how the machinations of the lineup, with regard to whoever's going to move up, be it, Vlad Nemesnikov or Al Iafallo or whomever will be maybe elevated in the lineup. Now, time will tell, closer as we get closer to Thursday, how the Jets actually line up. What impact will this have, these injuries? And you can say now it's, Lowry, Samberg, let's say Perfetti, let's say Taves with maybe a less of an impact, given that he's only day-to-day so far. How will this impact? Can the Winnipeg Jets withstand these injuries and still have success, on ice, at least to start this year? Can they take these injuries and say, this is adversity. This is adversity early in the season. This doesn't shape up for another start of 15-1, but how do we handle these injuries this year? And how is it going to impact our on-ice performance? I want you guys to think about that. And that's what we'll talk about on the other side of the break. It's Saturday morning. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. Don't go anywhere. Much more Jets talk to come as we continue with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back. Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. I know there's a lot of baseball fans watching us, a lot of Jays fans. The ALDS getting
Go
underway
Jays
today. The Jays officially no Max Scherzer, no Chris Bassett, no Bo Bichette on the ALDS lineup. So they are another team fighting through some issues, if you will, albeit at the end of their season, not at the start of their season. They're going to, of course, do battle against the Yankees, so things will be a little bit of an uphill climb for the Jays, especially.
Well, Dave Minuk is the Vladdy Guerrero Jr. of Illegal Curve, so we've got him. So that's all I care about.
Did we sign him to that big contract earlier in the year? Is that what happened?
My bank account doesn't look like you signed me to that contract, so I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, we signed you to it, and then we embezzled it from you right away. It works both ways that way.
That sounds about right.
IOUs, Dave. It's in IOUs.
Exactly. So back to my question before the break. We talked about the injuries. 4 regulars, potentially, for the Winnipeg Jets out of the lineup for the season opener on Thursday. It's a big number. How is this team going to be able to withstand these injuries? And do you think it will dramatically impact their on-ice success? Is this a team that has now gone from a sure thing playoff team, Stanley Cup contender, to something less as a result of these injuries? Or do you think that they are battle-tested enough and they know how to win enough that these injuries, while not ideal, are still going to be something that they're able to overcome, particularly early in the season without Lowry? I mean, let's assume you're without Lowry, you're without Samberg, and you're without Perfetti for the first month to 6 weeks of the season. Is that something the Winnipeg Jets can overcome?
Yes, they can. And if you think about that, what are you talking about? You're talking about 15 to 18 games.
Yeah, let's take for argument's sake. Let's say it's the month of October plus.
It's 11 games.
Okay, and then a couple weeks into November.
But I think when Samberg is supposed to come back, that would put the Jets around 15 games, if I'm not mistaken. If you take 6 to 8 weeks, right? So, I mean that's not a huge part of the season, right? It's
almost a quarter of the season.
Well, no, but it's a significant part of the season. But what I'm saying is, if I'm the Florida Panthers without both Sasha Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk, because Matthew Tkachuk's going to be out till December.
Yeah.
Then if I'm Paul Maurice, I'm a lot more worried than if I'm Scott Arniel. And again, you said going off the assumption that Perfetti is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Yes, that scares me a little bit more. We obviously don't know right now, guys. He could miss 1 or 2 games as opposed to missing, 15 games like Sandberg is supposed to miss. Going under that assumption,
this conversation, we're assuming worst case scenario.
Yeah, well, then that's huge, because then you throw in Taves. Obviously, hasn't played in the NHL in several years, and he's day to day. And obviously, we're hoping that he's going to be healthy for Game 1 on Thursday versus Dallas. But I mean, that's 2/3 of your second line right now, where you have injury concerns, right? And obviously the Jets, we talked about the depth. You can move in Vlad Nemesnikov to center that second line. He did that last year with Ehlers and Perfetti. You can move Al Iafallo up to the second line. And no, he's not going to give you as much offense, Dave, as Cole Perfetti will, obviously. Mm-hmm. But he's a guy that has proven that he can tread water in a top 6 role, right? So I think that the Jets will definitely feel it, Drew. It's hard to say, what to predict what the record's going to be. We talked about after the Jets play Dallas and LA, out of their 9 next games, they only play one playoff team, right? So the Jets do have
last year. That's right.
Exactly. So I mean, the Jets do have a softer schedule for the month of October, and then I think even November they play. What is it, Pittsburgh, Dave, on November 1st or 2nd?
Yeah.
That's when we think Adam Lowry might be back for that game. He might be back a little bit earlier. So I mean, what I'm trying to say, guys, is yes, I mean, you're obviously, without Dylan Sandberg, your best defensive defenseman right there, missing for 6 to 8 weeks. That's huge. But then you take out Perfetti, a top 6 winger, who's now on your top power play unit. You're going to feel that. So yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody should expect a 15-1 start for the Jets this year. It could be a little bit rocky for the first month or so of the season.
Dave, are the Jets now sort of moving into that type of team that is so good that they can sort of pace themselves? Like, I look at the Florida Panthers last year. The Panthers were never in danger.
And the Oilers, by the way. The Oilers and the Panthers, I would say both were playing at about 70% of their effort levels.
Right. They were never in danger of really missing the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But they were never at the top of the NHL. They were always just sort of comfortably going about their business. And then they picked it up as the season went on when the games began to matter most. I mean, the Oilers almost took it a little bit too far. They very easily could have been down 3-0 to the LA Kings if it wasn't for Jim Hillier and that bad challenge that put that series there. But are the Jets almost, do they have that muscle memory of how to be a good team and how to win at this level, that they can sort of just pace themselves instead of winning, 4 out of every 5 games? They can win 3 out of every 5 games and be a 600% winning, a 600 team rather than a 700 team. A little bit skewed, but everyone knows what I'm talking about in terms of winning percentage and points percentage.
Yeah.
Things of that nature.
Yeah. The beauty of hockey is we don't know. No, none of us who sat here, we all thought the Jets were a playoff team last year when we did this show, but none of us.
I know, actually, Dave. I have the Sports Almanac from 25-26.
You're going.
The Jets beat the Stars 4-2 on opening night.
Boy, that'll be real scary when he's actually right. But the point of the fact of the matter is, first of all, in a show last week or the week prior, we talked about the schedule. It's not the hardest schedule. No. The first 2 games are against playoff teams, then the next 8 aren't as difficult. And there's some teams who are up and coming, weren't playoff teams last year, who are better this year. So you cannot take them lightly, but it's not the hardest schedule for the Winnipeg Jets to begin with. So that's a good thing. The other thing also, though, is, like I said, none of us know. None of us can know how these guys are going to gel. A lot of them, you talk about muscle memory, a lot of these guys, have played together. And Cole Perfetti is a very important player. And as he just touched on, he did get the opportunity, or he was going to get the opportunity to be the power play 1 replacement for Nikolai Ehlers. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is that he wasn't the power play 1 guy last year, other than when Ehlers was hurt, right? So it's not as if the power play, with all its success, was reliant on Cole Perfetti. Cole Perfetti was a 50-point player. It's only, 13 points more than a guy like Nino Niederreiter. Again, I'm not minimizing it. But from a goal perspective, they actually, I think one had 20 and one had 17. So I'm not saying that, again, his production wasn't so much that the Jets were reliant on it, that if he wasn't producing on a nightly basis, they weren't having success. Now, we have all talked about how Cole Perfetti's game has changed. Maybe it was the Perfetti game, right, as he in Utah, but the fact of the matter is, or against Utah, sorry. But the fact of the matter is that his game was evolving and he was becoming a much better player. And again, Drew, I'm not going to go out on a limb. I know you're using a hypothetical, but we have no idea in terms of he could literally just have strained something and they're going to give him a week off and then he'll be back. Right. I have no idea. So I'm not going to speculate. I understand we're just doing it for the sake of having a conversation here. But the fact of the matter is that, to me, I look at this team and I think, yeah, I do think that they have a certain, like their structure of defense first, play that way. Now, it's not going to be, as he said, it's not going to be easy without Dylan Sandberg, because he's your best shutdown guy, and your PK without Lowry. That's one thing we haven't really talked about a lot. Your PK without Lowry and without Sandberg, that's a big, like that's a team that's going to have to play some clean hockey, because you cannot afford to take a lot of penalties, because that's going to put you in a negative position, I would imagine, without those two. And I highlighted the comment from Brett Bellamy. You're going to have to be relying on Connor Hellebuyck. He's going to have to be, not near perfect, but he is. And, look, Scott Arniel was on the power play with Steve Koulias the other day.
Scott Arniel's on the Jets power play?
He was not on the Jets power play, but
he was back in 1989.
I was going to say, once upon a time he was on the Jets power play, Drew, but he was on the show, The Power Play. Sorry, I'll qualify it for those not understanding.
The Sirius XM Steve Koulias show.
Yeah. And he just basically was talking about Hellebuyck and getting down his games. I thought it was interesting, right? And I went back, and as you'll like this, I did a little research, and it just showed that, like, goalies who have played over 60 games, how many goalies, we'll see if you guys read it, how many goalies have won the Stanley Cup since 2010-11 playing more than 60 games? And Drew, don't pull up the article.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think it's one, Jonathan Quick, right?
Big Daddy's got it right. So, I mean, you've had one goaltender win, and Scott Arniel actually said, we'd like to get him under 60. Now, the qualifier, which I'm going to ask him about this week, is, does he mean 60 plus potentially 10 playoff games? Because if Connor Hellebuyck's only playing 58 games, but you're going to get him into all these Olympic games, then it kind of nullifies the point, right? But if they're obviously looking to reduce his load a little bit, but in the beginning, they're going to have to use him a lot, because you're going to need him to kind of overcome some of these absences on the forward line.
And sorry, I just wanted to jump in here, Drew. Dave mentioned the 23-man opening night roster. I think this is going to be very interesting, because I'm not sure if your guys' minds went there. Well, I mean, I don't think you guys want your mind to go where my mind goes, but
it's a beautiful mind.
Yeah, exactly. Let's
frightening though, mind. It might be beautiful, but it's scary at the same time.
Dave is the Vladdy Guerrero Jr. of Illegal Curve, and I'm the Russell Crowe of Illegal Curve in A Beautiful Mind, if you've seen that movie. Great movie, by the way.
Not Russell Crowe in Gladiator, though.
No. That's you, Drew. You're Russell Crowe in Gladiator.
Thank you, yes.
You're, what is he, Commodus? Is that what his... Maximus?
Yeah,
what's his name?
Something
Maximus
like
Commodus, something like that. No, but where my mind went when that Perfetti injury happened is, you've already got Sandberg out, you've already got Lowry out. Like, are the Jets going to go 13 forwards or 14 forwards? And what's interesting is, if they go with 14 forwards, guys, you know what that means? They're going to have to waive a defenseman, right? Because the Jets currently have 9 NHL defensemen on one-way contracts, correct?
Yes.
So if the Jets keep, let's say they, like, Parker Ford makes the team, Nikita Chibrikov makes the team, David Gustafson makes the team, with Perfetti out of the lineup, I'm pretty sure, Dave, that would be 14 forwards, right?
No, because I mean, I think what they'll do is, again, you're going to
IR some of these guys.
Yeah, you're going to IR some of these guys. So my suspicion is they'll keep 8 defensemen. Although I will say, actually, I don't think they're going to waive a forward, as I think if anything, potentially, Scott Arniel slightly telegraphed when, I think he was asked by, I don't know if it was Christian Amal yesterday or Mike McIntyre, talking about whether he was going to go, 13-8-2, or if he was going to go 13-7-2 and not have an extra defenseman. And he just said, he of course didn't give us a direct answer, but he didn't like, there was a little bit of, I read into it that they're not necessarily set on having 8D. The forwards, I think, are set. I don't think they're going to, like, other than Walker Dewar, who I think they'll waive, and then Lambert and Chibrikov, again, maybe they'll put on waivers, keep up Parker Ford.
Well, not waivers, they'll loan them to the AHL.
Sorry, did I say waivers with those guys? Of course, yeah, no. Just
but if Perfetti's injured, then you need an extra forward, right? Because Taves is out as well. So if it was based on last night's roster, and unless I'm not counting the forwards properly, I think it would depend on if Taves is healthy. whether you would keep a Chibrikov, I guess.
Right. No, for sure. But I know, and that's I agree with you, Ez. But I just think like, that's definitely a consideration. Is if he's healthy, then you send those guys down. And the only question for me is whether, from what I'm understanding, based on what I hear, the way the coach is speaking, I think they're considering right now as to whether they're going to waive. It would only be Ville Heinola really at this point. So whether they're going to cut him free and give him an opportunity with another NHL team, or maybe they think that another NHL team won't take him and they can send him down to the Moose and he'll play big minutes. I have no idea, but that to me is
that would be the best case scenario for sure.
Well, for sure, because then but again, you're not
necessarily for Ville.
Well, and yeah,
I think he's a player who needs who's looking for a fresh start in a different organization at this point in time.
Well, you're right, Drew, because without Dylan Samberg in the lineup, and the fact that Ville Heinola didn't play the last preseason game to me was telling, right? Like Heinola could have easily played last night.
Yeah, and
they decided not to dress him, right? So to me, that means that he's still buried on the depth chart.
For some reason, so is Colin Miller, which makes no sense. But that's the story for another time.
That's something I agree with, and that's a bigger concern of mine, I think, than the forward group is the defense without Samberg. It's going to be a little bit testy this year without Samberg in the lineup.
I mean, you look, we've seen this. We saw it when he went down after breaking his foot in Nashville last year.
And they were like a 500 team.
They were about a 500 team. That was where they went through their biggest lull of the season, is without Dylan Samberg in the lineup, is when he was out after breaking his foot. And what did he miss? He missed about 6 weeks or so?
Something like that.
Something like that. The team was not, that was when, now struggles is a relative word because it's not like they were woeful by any stretch of the imagination, but that was when they were not at as good as well as high performing as they were when he was in the lineup, because you don't have that option to fill in for him on your left side there. I mean, we've seen what they're going to try to do, whether it's bumping up Stanley, whether it's, it seems like Stanley and Pionk.
No. It's got to be Hayden Fleury. It has to be. And based on the options the Jets have, I mean, you can't if Logan Stanley's playing top 4 minutes
instead of Hayden Fleury.
Hayden Fleury, then
with all due respect to Hayden Fleury, I mean, it's not like he's ever been a top 4 defenseman in this league either. Now, we all were very impressed with what he did last year, in Game 7. That was
But he's played a little bit in Seattle. He played a little. Look, Drew, it's if it's between Hayden Fleury and Logan Stanley, unless you're arguing that it's going to be Logan Stanley, I just feel a lot more comfortable. Again,
I'm not arguing. No, I'm not arguing. I mean, I think they're both bottom pairing defensemen. Is what I'm saying.
And we all know that, right? Like at this point in his career, Hayden Fleury's 28, 29 years old right now. Like he's a solid third pair defenseman. Nobody is, but you have Scott Arniel and the coaching staff has a huge hole to fill there on the second pair. And it's like Dave said, even strength, Samberg's obviously one of the best shutdown defensemen in the league, but it's also on the penalty kill, right? And we always talk about the importance of special teams, right? Yeah. So that's why his loss is so significant, but he's the first guy that Scott Arniel, sends out over the boards for the penalty kill. I don't mean that literally, obviously, but he plays on the top penalty killing unit, right? So it's a big loss. And
I also don't think you can overlook the impact of Samberg's absence on what it will have on Neil Pionk. I mean, Neil Pionk, had a good year last year, but a lot of the good year that he had was because of the fact he was next to Dylan Samberg. Now Neil Pionk, next to Hayden Fleury or Logan Stanley or however it shakes out, is not going to look as good as he did at times last year when Samberg is there. I mean, Samberg is the human eraser. That's what he did. He erased everybody's mistakes with his defensive play, with his defensive structure. And we've seen the videos that have been clipped where Samberg just shuts down plays for the opposition. Now you don't have somebody who's necessarily going to be able to do that for the next 4 to 6 weeks. I think you can certainly make the argument that Samberg's injury might impact the success of the Winnipeg Jets more than the Perfetti injury for however long Perfetti's out of the lineup. The Jets, I think, can handle the the loss of a Perfetti, even though it makes their forward group thinner and you lose some high-end talent there. But I think the high-end talent of Samberg being out of your lineup is more impactful on the Jets than the high-end talent of Perfetti being out of your lineup.
Yeah, I think Marvin Webster will let you go with the former Seattle Supersonic New York Nick stealing his human eraser nickname, Drew. And you should know him because Marvin Webster, of course, played in the 70s when you were a young 40-year-old. So, I mean, I thought you'd know.
Who the hell is Marvin Webster?
I was going to say, Drew, Dave, did you look that up?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Or did you? Okay.
Marvin Webb. I'm thinking Marvin. I'm like, is that the name of Marvin the Martian? I didn't realize.
No, he's a 7'1" center. He played for the Supersonics and the Knicks in the 70s. I only know because I looked it up.
Okay, if we're gonna bring up the human eraser right now, I'm gonna bring up Chocolate Thunder, Daryl Dawkins.
Well, I knew you'd go there. Anyways, there's no question that. But I mean, guys, if the Jets lose, Mark Scheifele, you're not replacing him. If the Oilers lose Connor McDavid, you're not replacing him. If any team losing a top player, you're never going to replace him. You're never going to be able to oh, well, we've got that in our roster, in our depth, so we're going to replace that. The only thing you can hope is that, and again, from a Jets perspective, you have to hope that they do it this way, is that they go by a committee approach. They keep guys fresh. They keep rotating guys in and out of the lineup in order to, again, get the benefit of having guys who are all kind of the same and can all kind of bring you something slightly different. And none of these guys are going to be would dream of being in your top four. I'm not talking about but I'm talking about in your six, right? Like the Colin Millers for Luke Shen. You're not going to play Luke Shen for 82 games. You got to get Colin Miller in there. And, again, similarly with Ville Heinola, give the kid an opportunity. I mean, you never know. If you're going to keep him up, you may as well give him a shot because maybe there's something there. Maybe he can regain his form. I'm not saying he has. I'm not saying he's deserved it based on this preseason, but I think that Fleury is your guy. I mean, Fleury was the guy who, again, I didn't think he was terrific in that when he was pressed into service last year for Dylan Samberg, but he got stronger as the year went on and he had a good playoffs. So the question becomes for Hayden Fleury is, can he step up now with the confidence of his last year, with the confidence of his 2-year deal that he signed with Winnipeg, giving him some permanence in this community? Maybe he's not as nervous as he was last year. Maybe he's more established. Maybe he's ready to go. We'll see. But he's the only guy you're putting in that role. You're not putting Logan Stanley in that role. That would be, and again, my concern would be if you're going to put, again, the coaching staff can make their own decisions. But for me, if you're putting Logan Stanley in the lineup, it's got to be with Colin Miller as his D pair. And if you're putting Luke Shen in the lineup, it's got to be with Ville Heinola as a D pair because they at least offset each other in what they're able to do. But to have Logan Stanley and Luke Shen, is that the slowest D pair in the league?
It might be, but sorry, Dave. Then based on that comment just there, does Heinola make this team?
Well, I think it goes. Sorry, Dave. I was just going to jump in here. That's why, and again, it's hard to keep up with who's in the lineup and who's out of the lineup because Taves obviously is day to day. But correct me if I'm wrong. With Samberg out of the lineup, the Jets.
Samberg's on IR.
Sorry, they have eight defensemen, right?
Right now, yes,
Colin Miller and Ville Heinola didn't play, right?
Correct.
So that's why it'll be interesting to see if the Jets go 13-8-2.
I think that's what they're going to do.
Because that would mean that if Taves is healthy, then Parker Ford makes the team. David Gustafson's your extra forward, and then Chibrikov
or
and Lambert.
vice versa.
Right. So that's why I think you have to keep Ville Heinola in the picture because of the depth on the left side and the fact that you want to have him as an option to go in on that third pair. I think Drew's onto something here. I think with the injury to Dylan Samberg, this is it's almost like it's breathing fresh life into Ville Heinola's career. But then again, they didn't play him last night in the preseason game. So I still think he's 8th on the depth chart behind Colin Miller. But I don't think you can afford to lose him on waivers.
And the only thing I will say, the guy who actually I thought would look good in camp is Cale Clegg. And obviously he was sent down and sent to the Moose and got through, but he's a left shot defenseman who, who's produced quite a bit in the American Hockey League level. And he's not much different than a Kyle Capobianco or a Dylan Coughlin.
Right.
But, when those guys were pressed into service with the Jets occasionally, they didn't look out of place. So a guy like Cale Clegg is a guy who I impressed me during the training camp. I thought he looked good. I think he's going to look really good with Elias Salamonson paired on with the top pairing with the Manitoba Moose. So I think he's going to add a lot of value to what Elias is learning and developing in his second full season here in Winnipeg. But yeah, I mean, again, like I said, if I'm the Jets, and again, the other thing that we should be cognizant of is Scott Arniel has alluded to the fact that it's not just the guys we know about who are dealing with stuff. There's guys who he's not telling us are dealing with bumps and bruises. So my point is that if
Connor Hellebuyck's rib,
can we talk about that for a second? That was crazy.
It is just the way he described it.
Well, the best was when he said when he said he popped it back. He went to the Cairo and popped it back in. All I could think about was how much our boy Tapper would have loved hearing getting the Cairo's getting the praise for that. So I thought of Tap, of course, when they did that one. But yeah, I mean, it's a little peculiar.
Dave, Hellebuyck pops his rib back in like Drew eats a rib from Tony Roma's.
Thank you, Ezzy. But he said my rib felt out of place, so I went to the chiropractor and they adjusted the rib back into place. I'm like, that's a player. I mean, it's amazing how professional athletes sort of know and understand their own bodies better than absolutely everybody else. But just such a matter of fact, straightforward way of going about it. He's like, yeah, I'm fine now. My rib is, back in place. I'm thinking Adam and Eve style. What'd they do? Take the rib out and, make another goaltender be, as a result. But anyways, it was just in a week full of injury related items. That was sort of one that Jets fans could breathe a sigh of relief, but at the same time, then in a very Hellebuckian way, the way he just sort of described it and matter of factly, it was pretty entertaining that way.
Well, he basically, it was funny because Scott Arniel was going to try and keep it secret, then Hellebuck revealed it, and then when Arniel found out that he had revealed it, he said, "Ooh, he told you guys that's not good." But I think he was happy to keep us in the dark. But I think at the end of the day, if I'm the Winnipeg Jets. And I think Cale Clegg could come up and definitely play games and be fine. And again, like I said, he's got 94. I'm just looking right now, 94 NHL games under his belt. So with the Kings and there's and a few with the Sabres, of course. But there's a player there who, again, in pinches you're going to be able to use. But if you're the Winnipeg Jets, I think you want to have the security knowing you've got the 8, because if one guy goes down or if one guy's dealing with something. Maybe Miller's dealing with something. Maybe there's a reason why. So
Connor Hellebuck's rib has now joined the chat. Helly's rib is in the chat now.
This is why the chat is the best, because they always bring it. Whether it's
the chat never disappoints, Dave.
And they never forget, right? We've got Kenny's water bottle, one of the OGs in terms of great names. We got Drew's jazz hands that is definitely there.
Is that still kicking around?
No, they were there today.
There was technical difficulties as well.
Yeah. It's true. And especially when they bring it with a good picture like Helly's rib did, that's a funny one. So look, the Jets are going to have to navigate. They're going to deal with some what we call early season adversity, and they're going to have some question marks. But if I had to make a prediction, I'm going to think that they're going to go 13-8-2.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Jets vis-a-vis their Central Division opponents this season. We remember last year it was 5 teams out of the 8 playoff teams in the Western Conference that came out of the Central. We'll look at the Jets' opponents in that Central Division. We'll try and line them up. We'll try and evaluate them. Where do the Jets fit in among the best, among the mushy middle, or among the bottom of the teams in the Central Division? I suspect it's not at the bottom, but we'll talk about that up next. And at the bottom of hour number 2, Dan Rosen from NHL.com is going to join us to further this conversation regarding the 25-26 NHL season. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, shortly before 10 in the morning. There's Kenny's water bottle. He's in the chat now. Much more to come. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now. This is the hour that inspired Taylor Swift and the Life of a Showgirl album, dedicated to Ezra Ginsburg and his life as a YouTube star. So that's very nice of T Swift and
you listened to the new album?
I did listen to the new album. I have a 10-year-old daughter. I wanted to vibe with her. I wanted to sort of get on the same wavelength as her. She's not an overwhelming Swiftie, but so a lot of her friends are. So she enjoys at least hearing some of the new songs and knowing what the vibe is all about. I mean, she, whatever you think about her, she's a talent. Anybody who can perform, I don't care what you are performing. You have a talent and you have an art, and I salute you for that. So I mean, I
Taylor,
don't know that.
All jokes aside, Taylor Swift is very talented. Like,
of course she is.
She's got a great voice. She's a great performer.
That's right.
My daughter's also into Taylor Swift, so she's probably going to want to listen to the new album. I'm not even sure how you listen to it. Like, what do you listen to it on Spotify? I guess
that's how you listen to music nowadays. It's usually on Spotify or another. I mean, I still
listen to cassettes on my Sony Walkman.
But I figured I'm counterculture, so I prefer to use I use YouTube music because I don't want to be a man of the people. I'm independent, so I use YouTube music rather than Spotify. But yes, anyways, I did listen to a lot of the album yesterday. I'm sure Dave M did as well, and in between his EDM sets, he was listening to Life of a Showgirl as well, right, Dave?
I have not listened to it. No, I cannot say I've listened, unfortunately.
But you are a Swiftie, though.
I like Taylor Swift. She's got some good music.
Look how woke and how refined we are.
Drew, just don't call Dave a furry.
No. Or a glass banger. You're not a furry and not a glass banger, but other than that, he's a man of the people. Back to what I was going to talk about. Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show brought to you by our friends, of course, at Play Now, the title sponsor of this program. Bet with Play Now, the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Sign up and get up to $250 in bonus bets. Conditions apply. 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. The Jets vis-a-vis their Central Division opponents. I mean, I think it's safe to say that the Central Division, much like it was last year, is going to be a highly competitive division. I mean, the only teams I think that don't have a chance in the Central Division continue to be the Chicago Blackhawks and likely the Nashville Predators. Those are the bottom feeders of the division. The Utah Hockey Club seems like it should be, a team that continues to be on the rise. I'm not sure if that they're quite there just yet, but let's talk about the sort of the Central, how do you guys sort of see it shaping out? Who do you see as the peak team in the Central? How do you sort of envision the Winnipeg Jets' primary opponents?
Yeah, I think the top teams are still from last year are still the top teams. I think the Jets are still a top team. The Avalanche, the Stars, those are the three, at least to me, the kind of clear cut top three. But like you said, Drew, there's 6 of 8 teams in this division that have a legitimate shot at making the playoffs. Obviously, last year, 5 teams, guys, made it into the playoffs from the Central Division, and I think there's a good chance that's going to happen again. You mentioned the Utah Mammoth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going to go and I'm going to use my bold prediction because it is the time of preseason predictions, right? Right, I should say regular season predictions. I'm going to.
We rarely do preseason predictions. Those would not be. That would not be an entertaining segment.
Yeah, and I don't know how many of us had the Jets winning 2 of their preseason games. But yes,
honestly, until you just said it, I didn't know the number of the preseason games the Jets won.
Come on, Drew. No, but you look at we talked about last year's standings. The Utah Mammoth had 89 points last year. They only missed the playoffs by 7 points. The guy that I think is really going to have a huge impact, and one of the reasons why I'm picking them is JJ Peterka. I love that trade between the Utah Mammoth and the Buffalo Sabres. They gave up Kesselring and Josh Doan, Shane Doan's kid, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
JJ Peterka is a legit star, and he's going to make that team good when you consider, they've already got Logan Cooley there, Dylan Gunther, obviously Clayton Keller. I mean, this is a good young up-and-coming team. And another thing, I know this isn't the Utah Mammoth show, but John Marino and Sean Dursey missed a lot of time last year on the back end, and those guys are healthy. And so I think that they're going to have a big impact. You've obviously got Mikhail Sergachev there on the back end. So I think the defense is pretty underrated. Obviously, Vermelka is a solid goalie. So I think the Central is going to be just as tight, if not more tight, than last year. And I would throw in, I think the Minnesota Wild, I could see them, improving a little bit. They had 97 points last year. So I think the top is still the same, but I think it's going to be fascinating to see who grabs those kind of 4th and 5th spots if 5 teams do make it in the Central, because the St. Louis Blues, you never want to count them out. Obviously, we talked about the Wild and the Mammoth. It's going to be very competitive, but I will say this. I do think the Jets are going to have a tougher time this year locking up first. They won first by 10 points last year. I think it's going to be tighter than it was last year, just based on the turnover with the Jets and the injuries they have to start the season.
I would agree with that. I think what you said about Utah, I agree with a lot as well. They were banged up on the back end. I mean, that's where they made most of their offseason additions last year. Yes. And they lost a lot of man games. I mean, you look at that defense for Utah, you have some names there that are certainly of interest. You have Sergachev, you have Marino, Sean Dursey. I mean, those are guys.
They added Nate Schmidt.
They added Nate Schmidt too. I mean, I don't know if that, Nate, of course, the Stanley Cup champion, ex-Florida Panther, ex-Winnipeg Jet. That's a team that I think is should be ready, if they can stay healthy, to take a step forward. I would not be surprised if they are in the running right up until the very end, if not a playoff team. Peterka is a goal scorer. What Utah struggled with last year was scoring some goals. They were in the bottom third of the league.
They were top heavy.
Yeah, they were in the bottom third of the league. So you add another goal scorer to your lineup, I think there's a lot to like about what Utah is doing and what Utah is building moving forward. So that's a team that I'm certainly keeping a close eye on vis-a-vis the Central Division. To me, the team that is, look, when you have Nathan McKinnon, you're going to be fine. But if you're
not mentioning Cale Makar.
Well, and Cale Makar, right? Cale Makar too. If you have Makar and McKinnon, you're going to be fine. But if you're the Colorado Avalanche, there's not a lot behind them. There's the questions about Marty Nakash still. I mean, he's a pending unrestricted free agent. I'm just not sure what Colorado's all about. I just don't see how they've improved from last year. I mean, I know you have Landeskog, but what he can bring to the table, I mean, he's sort of Taves-esque in that question as to, what's he going to be able to do over the course of a full season. He's not as old as Jonathan Taves is necessarily, but he's got the injury concerns. He's got the big, long layoff. To me, Dave, the Colorado Avalanche are a team that is. I just have a lot of questions about them. I think they're a playoff team, but I don't know that they are an elite team after McKinnon and Makar anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Drew. I mean, look, and you've got Dallas, who's got a situation with Jamie Benn, right? And his, I think it's a collapsed lung, so he's out for I think the first month of the season. So a lot of teams are dealing with things, and
one of 4 players left in the NHL who doesn't wear a visor. Can you name the other 3?
No.
Can you?
I'll give you one of them.
Okay.
One of them is an ex-Jet defenseman.
Nate Schmidt?
Nope.
No.
An ex-Jet defenseman.
Zach Bogosian?
Who was drafted by the Atlanta Thrashers.
Zach
Bogosian?
Yep.
Okay.
Bogo's one of them. Bogo's one of them. I'll give you another hint. So you got Bogosian.
Yeah.
And you got Jamie Benn.
Okay.
And one of them, as a former Conn Smythe winner.
Corey Perry?
Nope. He never won the Conn Smythe, Drew.
Okay.
He won the Stanley Cup. Well, I'll just give it to you. Ryan O'Reilly is the third.
Okay.
And then the fourth one, the player is from Winnipeg, and he's very tough.
Ryan Reeves.
There you go.
Okay. There you go. Thank you for
that. Was fun.
That was fun. A little Ezzy Ginsburg trivia right there. A little unexpected trivia, but that was fun. We appreciate that. Dave just left. Okay, goodbye to Dave. So
Dave was so upset by my trivia that he just bounced out.
Yeah, he's had enough. He says he got to go. Okay, so Dave, Ezzy, back to my comment about the Colorado Avalanche there, because I mean, again, McKinnon and Makar, superstars, you're going to be fine, but I don't really love the rest of the roster. It's just a weird mix. I mean, I know you bring in Victor Olofsson, who can score goals. He scored in Buffalo. He scored in Vegas, but he's sort of a one-trick pony. The bottom of your lineup is weird. I just don't know what their identity sort of is, aside from, well, we have McKinnon, we have Makar. Those guys can just win us games on their own.
Well, I still think they're a good team. I don't, by the way, think that they're, I wouldn't say they're necessarily the favorite. I just said they're still a top 3 team easily. That's my opinion. That I still, when I look at that division, I just see the Jets, the Avalanche, and the Stars separating themselves from the teams like the Wild and the Mammoth and the Blues. I'm not saying there's a huge gap. I'm just saying that's, if you were to ask me, Drew, to predict the standings, that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say Jets 1, Avalanche 2, or maybe I'd go Stars 2, Avalanche 3. I agree with what you said about the Avalanche, though, in their bottom 6. Like, we talked about their top 6 with McKinnon and Landeskog. Brock Nelson, obviously, is your second-line center now. Lehkonen, Nichushkin. Like, your top 6 is one of the best top 6s in the league. But the bottom 6, there's, and you got a guy like Ross Colton on your third line. Like, it's definitely not the deepest bottom 6. You've still got a really solid defense. Obviously, we talked about Makar, but Devon Taves, Josh Manson, Sam Malinsky is a good defenseman. Brent Burns. Obviously, Brent Burns at 40 years old, you're not asking him to play 25 minutes a night. You're asking him just to play, 15 to 20 minutes a night, right? So I don't know. Look, again, Drew, I'm not picking the Avalanche to win the Stanley Cup. I'm not like an Avalanche defender. Right. I just think as long as you've got 2 of the best players in the world and a pretty good supporting cast around them, I think at the very least they're locked to make the playoffs, depending on what happens in injuries. And obviously, Mackenzie Blackwood has established himself there as the number 1 goaltender. We'll see, but like I see 105 points kind of winning the division this year. Like I don't think it's going to be like last year where you have the Jets running away with it at 116 points. And again, I might be wrong, but that's just, I'm looking at it. I think it's going to be tighter at the top, but also very tight for that last playoff spot, because I think Utah and Minnesota are right up there with St. Louis competing for the 4th and 5th spots in the Central.
To me, the Dallas Stars are probably the best team in the division. I mean, when you look at the Dallas Stars lineup, up and down it, when you have, when you bring in Mikko Rantanen for a full season and then moving forward as a key member of your team, and you still have, I know there's some noise around Jason Robertson and everything else like that, but you still have Jason Robertson, a guy who's good usually for somewhere between 30 and 40 goals a year, and then you look at their back end. I mean, I think that their defense is also maybe even the as strong as their forward group is, their defense is equally impressive. Heiskanen and Lindell, they make a great pairing. I mean, we've seen them play together. Heiskanen, we know, was injured last year. If you get him back to health, that's a solid
he's
pairing.
a top 10 defenseman in the league, maybe even top 5.
And the sky's the limit as it pertains to Thomas Harley.
Yep.
I mean,
that's on the Olympic team this year.
He very well could be on the Olympic team for this year. I mean, Thomas Harley is a stud defenseman as well on the left side there for the Dallas Stars. And then, by the way, you have pretty good goaltending in Jake Ottinger as well. I mean, the Dallas Stars, to me, are very deep. There's no.
That's why I'm probably going 1-2 Jets and Stars in the division this year. It sounds like you're going Stars 1, Jets 2, and I'm going Jets 1, Stars 2.
I'm not even entirely sure I'm going Jets 2, but I am going Stars 1. I mean, I think the Jets will be a playoff team. I just don't. Again, as a professional athlete, we've seen these teams that know how to win games when they shouldn't. When the culture of the organization is so good that when everything is stacked up against them, they still find a way to pull it out. The San Francisco 49ers on Thursday night against a very good LA Rams team.
I watched that game, actually.
Right. San Fran had no reason being in that game. They really didn't. I mean, look at the lineup of players that they were missing from their game, from their roster, and yet they somehow won that game. Our buddy Connor Harabchuk is a big 49ers fan, so he was thrilled about that.
Some people, I think, won some big money on that game.
Well, they were 7.5, 8.5 point dogs. So if you're taking a money line dog that's to that extent, betting on play now, of course, you're going to earn some cash. The Jets, to me, are a similar idea in that, yes, there's a lot of adversity to start the year with the injuries, and we don't precisely know how long Perfetti is going to be out for. But the Jets are an organization that now knows how to win and expects to win. And those two things are very powerful. Those are powerful drivers of a team's success. That, yes, everything is stacked up against us. Yes, the adversity is against us, but we're going to find a way. We're going to, we know it. You have to learn how to win hockey games. You have to learn how to win sporting events, team sports. And the Jets are one of those teams now, like the Florida Panthers, probably like the Dallas Stars, like the Boston Bruins were maybe up until 2 years ago. When you lose so many guys and you still find a way to win a game because you know how to win, the tricks of the trade, as the expression goes. I think the Jets will be fine. I don't think they'll be at the top of the Central Division this year. It would not surprise me if they're a wild card team.
Right.
But I think the Jets will be fine.
It's going to be
the Dallas Stars are the best team in the Central Division.
Yeah, fair enough. And I have a lot of time to hear that argument because, I mean, look, Dallas has been in the Western Conference Finals 3 years in a row. They've lost every single time, but they've still gone to the Western Conference Final 3 times in a row. So right now, they are the kind of reigning Central Division champs, right?
And I think the coaching change they made, Pete DeBoer out. Pete DeBoer is a guy who the moment gets the better of him. He's a very good coach, but the moment can get the better of him. We've seen that over the last number of years. But they now have a new head coach in Glenn Gulletson. Look, I like everything about the Dallas Stars, and I think that they are likely to be...
Gulletson's been the coach of the Stars before, I believe, right?
Yes, he was, years ago. He was this is his second tour of duty in Dallas. But I think it was a different Dallas Stars team. It was a much younger team, a much less sort of talented team than I think he went to Calgary. Wasn't he the head coach in Calgary for a couple
Also a
years?
Manitoban. We should get that in there.
That too, yes. Anyways, to me, the Dallas Stars are the team to beat in the Central Division. I mean, I think the playoff teams in the Central, as they are the Jets and the Stars, the Avalanche. I think the Wild are a playoff team.
I do too.
I mean, they just signed Philip Gustafson. They signed him to a contract extension earlier today. I think he got a 5-year deal. If I can pull it up real quick, I'm pretty sure it was a 5-year contract extension for Glenn Gulletson for Philip Gustafson. I think they're a playoff team. It wouldn't surprise me if it's the same 5 teams. I mean, I think Utah and and St. Louis are probably battling out for that fifth playoff spot.
That's two I have, and like I mentioned, I mean, Utah only missed the playoffs by 7 points last year.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were like a 70-point team last year. They had 89 points. So that's why I think Utah is definitely in the mix.
Jump they have to
exactly,
take.
and
it's a few more wins here or there.
Right. So the Central, it's a meat grinder. There's no other way to describe it. Craig Button, I saw had a piece on TSN recently talking about it, and he called it the best division in hockey. And I think with the exception of the Atlantic, the other two divisions are not even close. The Atlantic is absolutely stacked. But yeah, it's going to be tough to squeak in and get that last wild card spot. It's going to be Utah. It's going to be Seattle. It's going to be Minnesota.
I don't think it's going to be Seattle.
Pardon me. I meant to say Utah, St. Louis, and Minnesota competing for that last, the 4th and 5th spots.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but going back to the Jets and how they kind of fit into this division, it's going to be tough. And it was tough last year, but especially considering that no Ehlers this year, and then you don't have Lowry and Sandberg to start the season, and possibly no Perfetti to start the season.
Right.
I just think it's unrealistic to think the Jets are going to have a similar start to last year. Like the first 15 games, the Jets could be something like 10-5 or 9-6, which is not bad, by the way. But it's just when you compare it to 15-1.
Well, Jets would take 9-6, I think, with no questions asked, without Lowry and Sandberg, and forget about Perfetti for the time being, when you're going to be without Lowry and Sandberg for the first 15 or so games of this year. You're going to be without them for the month of October, and who knows how long it trickles into the month of November. If you can tell the Jets right now you're going to be 9-6, you're going to take that. You're going to run to the bank with that. I mean, there's no question about that. That puts you in a good footing. That puts you in a good spot to improve upon that once you get healthier, assuming you do get healthier as the season goes on. And there's certainly times where injuries just are so catastrophic all year long that you never find that health. We don't need to prognosticate. We don't need to be doomsday, warriors in the lead up to that. I think the Jets would take that, no questions asked. But you look at, that division is going to be a tough division. It really is going to be. You have to win. Look, if you don't win half of your games, you're not going to make the Central Division playoffs. It's that simple. You're going to need to win 41. You're not going to make the playoffs going, 39, 30, and then have a whole bunch of overtime losses where you get the loser point. You're going to need to win at least 50% of your games. That has to be your benchmark. If you do that, and then of course you lose a few in overtime or a shootout, then you should be in a decent spot. But you look at all the teams that made the playoffs in the West last year. The St. Louis Blues had the fewest number of wins, and they had 44. So at Calgary Flames, they had 41, and they tied the Blues, but that's only because the Flames had 14 overtime losses. They had a huge number of overtime losses that inflated their point total. You got to win at least 50% of your games. Probably want to win 55% of your games. That's where you need to sort of put your mindset at if you want to be a playoff team coming out of the Western Conference. You look at the Pacific Division, to me, it's probably the same 3 teams. Anaheim intrigues me, but I think they're a year away. I love Jackson Lacombe. They just signed him to that contract extension. They got Mason McTavish signed to that contract extension. I think the sky's the limit for the Anaheim Ducks. The San Jose Sharks were terrible last year, which we've documented, but their Macklin Celebrini is not going to be bad for a very long time. He's going to improve that team. Will Smith is going to improve that team pretty quickly. So again, those are teams that are on the upswing, but they're a ways away still, at least.
It's still Edmonton. It's still Edmonton and Vegas's division until some of these teams. LA.
I don't love the moves, their off-season moves. I think Ken Holland exposed himself. Ken Holland, of course, is the new general manager in LA. I think some of his off-season signings exposed himself as a player as a general manager who is behind the times when it comes to player evaluation. What did he give Cody Ceci? 4 years? Some ridiculous number like that.
They picked up Joel as well, right? That was one of their off-season acquisitions.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. I just don't. I think the LA. I just don't think the LA Kings got significantly better. Like I could see them finishing 3rd or maybe 4th in the division, and if that gets you into the playoffs. I still don't think they've done anything to really make me think that they're more than just a team that gets knocked out in the first round. But they're still a perennial, playoff team and everything like that. But yeah, when I'm looking at that division, obviously Vegas brings in Mitch Marner. The Edmonton Oilers didn't make any wild moves, but they're still the Edmonton Oilers. Been to the
Still
Stanley
McDavid and Draisaitl, and that takes you a long way.
Yeah, so that division is a lot more top heavy and just not as deep as the Central. So like I said before, I'm still going 5 teams making it out of the Central this year.
I would agree with you. I mean, I look at the rest of that. I mean, I think the Seattle Kraken they're just a bad team again. I just don't know what their purpose is, and not as a franchise.
I could see them being competitive for a playoff spot for a certain amount of the season, but yeah, I don't know if I have enough confidence. Like I love Matty Beniers. I think Shane Wright has taken steps in his development. Jared McCann's a good player. Like they've got some decent pieces, but it's like we've talked about this kind of time and time again. They're a middling team.
Very much
there's not a lot of game breakers on the team. So I'm not confident in picking the Kraken to make the playoffs this year.
I would agree with you with that. Let's go seamlessly. He's early, but I love somebody who's nice and prompt. Dan Rosen from NHL.com. Good morning, Dan. Are you ready for us? I guess
I am ready. Yes, I'm ready. What's going on?
Thrilled you're able to join us this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Dan Rosen of NHL.com. We've been spending the majority of the last, let's say 85 minutes or so, of course, talking about the Winnipeg Jets, but we're thrilled to go all around the NHL with you as the season is right around the corner. It's finally time to be done with training camp, and I guess one more night of preseason games, and then the season begins early next week. Let's start here in Winnipeg, though, Dan. I mean, we're curious. The Jets they're running into an injury bug early on. Dylan Sandberg, he's going to be out of the lineup. Adam Lowry is going to be out of the lineup. Jonathan Taves is day-to-day. I don't know if you saw it last night, but Cole Perfetti injured himself in that game against Calgary, and Scott Arniel said it didn't sound good. It didn't look great, so it's unclear, what his status is going to be for Thursday's season opener. From your perspective, you look at the Winnipeg Jets, a team President's Trophy winner, had to use the Manitoba Miracle to get past the St. Louis Blues last year in the first round. What do you see from the Winnipeg Jets this season?
Well, listen, you just went through some of the injuries. I think the injury to Lowry and Sandberg are the key injuries that you're talking about here, because we know that those are a little bit longer term, and those are such key guys, right? I mean, on a team that is built to go deep and is a well-built team, to lose a player like Lowry, the captain, the big power forward in the middle, third line, if you want. I mean, it's a significant loss. And Sandberg, I think, is one of the more underrated players in the league, and I think it's an underrated loss. I don't think a lot of people understand how good Dylan Sandberg is and how effective he is on a team like the Winnipeg Jets. And we look at top-end talent a lot, and we always say, like, oh, look, you can't lose guys like that. Well, teams that win, teams that go deep, teams that have strong regular seasons and stay consistent, they go deep in their own lineup, and guys like Lowry and Sandberg are key to that. So those are big losses. Taves day-to-day, you don't want to see that. Listen, anytime Jonathan Taves is going to have any type of injury, you do worry, right? 37 years old, hasn't played in a couple of years, coming off health concerns. So you do have concerns there. And Perfetti, you hope it's not a long-term thing. They're not the only team dealing with injuries, and I think a lot of teams in this league can't wait until they drop to 4 preseason games as opposed to 6. So there is that. Although I do think when you go to that, you'll see more veterans playing, because the veterans like to get 3 games, if you will. And so it'll be actually a little bit less prospect-based preseason games. But regardless, on the whole, let's say everyone's healthy or they come back soon and whatnot, I think the Jets are a solid team. They're well-built. They're built to have strong regular seasons. We'll see. You never know what happens in the playoffs. You got to get hot, right? You got to get hot in the playoffs, and that's been a problem for them. It's been a problem for Connor Hellebuck. But I like the way they're built. Although I was asked a question not long ago for one of my weekly mailbags on NHL.com, who are the teams that I can see regressing the most this year? And I don't know if it's a cop-out answer, but I said Washington and Winnipeg, just simply because they were at the top of the league last year, and you expect some regression. I mean, you guys had massive years last year, and you have to repeat that to repeat what they were able to do last year. I still think they're a playoff team. It's a really deep division. Utah coming up now makes it even a harder division. And I'll be honest with you, I think the Nashville Predators are going to be better. I don't know if they're playoff better, but I think they're going to be better because they are a team that last year when, they overhauled so much and it didn't click and it was a problem. But maybe after a year that starts to roll for them a little bit better. So it's a deeper division. There's no question. I think they're a top 3 team in it. I think right now I had them at number 2 behind Dallas. And I think you'd take that if you're Winnipeg, because no matter who you play in the first round, it's going to be a hard team to play against. That's just the nature of the parity in the league and the parity of that division, especially. But the injuries at the start are a concern because, listen, we look at it and we say the games, they matter in March and early April. They matter in October because you missed the playoffs by a point or two. You can look back at that October loss and say, man, right there.
Absolutely. And Dan, I'm going right to Florida because you had a really good article for NHL.com about Sam Bennett and Sam Reinhart. And you mentioned in the article, and obviously you're right, you're bang on. These guys are going to play for Team Canada at the Olympics in Italy. And obviously wanted to ask you about the Panthers in the sense of being without Alex Barkov for most likely the entire regular season, and then being without Matthew Tkachuk as well. And I know that I'm sure that you mentioned the mailbag that's being brought up.
Yeah.
Are in your opinion, are the Panthers in danger of possibly missing the playoffs this year, or is that going too far?
I think that's going too far. I think they're a team that understands maybe better than every other team in the league, just simply based on the success that they've had, the importance of getting in, just get in, right? So yeah, the loss of Barkov it's a traumatic experience for that team. He's so big on that team. He is the voice in the room of that team. He is the leader. He is the best player. He's irreplaceable. There's nobody that they're going to put in that lineup that can do anything close to what Sasha Barkov can do. That being said, losing him on September 25th, it gives you a chance to build it back up a little bit. It gives you a chance to reimagine your team. This isn't a loss in the middle of February and you're like, oh my goodness, like Jack Hughes last year with the New Jersey Devils. That was devastating for them because that was late in the season, right? Mm-hmm. And then they had to go through and they're like, well, we're without our best, most skilled player as we enter the toughest stretch of the season and then the playoffs. And they were cooked pretty much, and then they got to have more injuries. At least the Florida Panthers, if you're going to find a silver lining, at least the Florida Panthers have an ability to reimagine the way they look without Sasha Barkov, simply because of the fact that he was hurt so early and before they played anything meaningful. Matthew Tkachuk, they're expecting him back. I think we know when Matthew Tkachuk is going to come back into the lineup. It's going to be a little bit before the Olympics, right? Let's be honest. We have an understanding of when Matthew Tkachuk will be back. My guess is, around that mid-January range. Gives him a couple of games, bang, he's off to the Olympics, and then he's rolling. Then you hope he's rolling and he doesn't get hurt at the Olympics and everything's fine. But they're a team that just needs to get in. And because they know when they get in, they have the experience, they have the talent, they have the goaltending, the defense. Remember, their defense really hasn't been touched. And now a lot of teams wouldn't mind having Marchand, Luostarinen, and Lundell be their third line. Everybody would want their third line. A lot of teams wouldn't mind having that as their second line, and that's what the Florida Panthers have right now. And I believe it's Verhaeghe, Bennett, and Reinhart as their top line right now. So their top 6 is still pretty darn good, and they're just going to have to reimagine the rest of it.
Dan Rosen, senior writer of NHL.com, is our guest Saturday morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Dan, the unrestricted free agents, and we were talking about this, throughout the course of this sort of last 6 weeks or so. The number of pending UFAs is as significant as we've seen in years. One less off the board. Kirill Kaprizov signing a massive
Gustafson.
deal.
Philip Gustafson,
there you go, Phil Gustafson too. Yeah. A bit of a bit underneath him,
a little bit less money.
Yeah, slightly less money. Yeah. He might be asking Kirill for a bit of a loan or something.
Right.
If you can't make ends meet. But for the teams that have these pending UFAs, and I include the Jets with Kyle Connor as one of those, how do you think that is going to sort of maybe not shape their season, but impact their season until there's a resolution along those lines?
So it's a really good question that I don't think any of us have the real answer for, because it's a unique year in that sense with Connor, Eichel, McDavid's obviously the top one. Panarin is one. Kaprizov's off the board. Adrian Kempe is another one in LA, right? So there's several this year. Bobrovsky is one as well. So it's a great question. What I think is going to happen here is the whole rhetoric of the whole storyline of this will die down a little bit as the season gets going, and then it'll pop up here and there. But overall, I don't think it's going to have a negative impact on the player or the team. I do think, though, that lingering question, if it goes through the course of the season, now it's just something that's always going to be there in the background. That's why I think it was so important that the Minnesota Wild were able to get Kaprizov signed, because of this. If they couldn't get it done, it's not like the Wild are a dominant team. They're not like a team we're looking at and saying they're Stanley Cup or bust, right? Mm-hmm. If they were sort of middling around the bubble and Kaprizov wasn't signed and there was no guarantee that he would get signed, then you'd be talking around the trade deadline of like, well, what do we do here, right? It would be a Mikko Rantanen thing again, right? I mean, like, what do we do here?
Yeah. Can add Marty Necas to your list of players as well.
It's the same situation. They're in the exact same situation with Necas as they were with Rantanen. Right. So I think that's when it'll bubble back up again, if the team is sort of in that bubble of like, third in the division or wild card or just below the wild card. But if you're the Winnipeg Jets and you haven't gotten Kyle Connor signed yet and you are firm in where you are in the standings, I don't think it's a question, and I don't think it should be a question, because it's about right now. It's about winning right now. Same thing with McDavid and the Oilers. Same thing with Vegas and Eichel. If there's nothing that's taken care of at that point, then I think you're fine. But if you're a team like I think the Wild could be, that's why it was so key to get Kaprizov signed. They don't have to deal with that now. Whereas some of these other teams, the Rangers might have to with Panarin, right? That might be a question for them come February. Like, what are we doing here if we're in that bubble range? We can't lose this guy for nothing. Are we a playoff team? Are we legit? Are we for real? So we don't like, that's when it bubbles back up. But it's certainly, I knew it would be big storylines throughout training camp. Once the regular season starts, I think it'll die down a little bit. Maybe not so much in Edmonton because there's still that uneasiness, with Connor McDavid. But, there is an uneasy feeling there. I know that for Edmonton, but they're not trading Connor McDavid. Like, they'd have to completely flop, and he'd have to be like, get me out of here for that to happen. And that's not happening.
You mentioned Marty Necas, and you said the same situation that Colorado was in last year with Rantanen. I mean, I think most people would say Rantanen's a better player than Necas. How does Colorado handle that situation? Are they, to me, that's just, I think they erred when they made that trade to begin with. And I don't know that they're any better off today than they were then, because you're in the same situation with the player you acquired.
Well, he's not the same player. Right. And if they were willing to trade Mikko Rantanen, they're willing to trade Marty Necas, right? I mean, that if they're going to trade a guy like Rantanen, you're not safe if you're not signed there. Okay, so that's number one. So that's why I think it's a very similar situation as Rantanen, and even more so, like, I don't think Marty Necas has the leg to stand on that Rantanen did either. Like, he just doesn't. Like, Rantanen won. He was a core piece. He's a Stanley Cup winner. All of those things. Necas doesn't have that, right? So, but he's also not going to get the same return unless he's just dominant this season. So it's a real interesting situation, especially when you factor in, and now listen, the cap's going up. We know the cap's going up, but we have to now. We are now in the age of, let's not look at the AAV as a dollar amount. Let's look at it as a percentage of the cap. That's what we need to be doing. Cale Makar is going to take a significant percentage of the cap. They can take up to 20%. When he gets a new deal, which is next year, and he's going to get a new deal, they're not letting him go. It's going to be in that 17, 18, 19, 20% of the cap, I would imagine, at least 15 to 20. So that impacts what you're going to now can do with Marty Necas, right? I mean, that certainly has an impact on that. Especially when you're already paying McKinnon what McKinnon is getting, and that's going to look like a bargain pretty soon, based on what the cap is. So there's that look ahead. You have to look forward to see where you're at with it, when you have a player like Makar coming up for a new deal. And that, I think, could really impact what the Avalanche are doing. And then maybe it impacts the negotiations they're having right now with Marty Naked.
Dan, wanted to ask you about the New York Rangers. Obviously, there's a lot of teams. We're not going to be able to go through all 32 teams, even though Drew and I would love to go through all 32 with you. But the New York Rangers, obviously, new coach Mike Sullivan. Last year was a very disappointing year. Like when I'm looking at that Metro division, and obviously, you know, we already talked about the Florida Panthers, the Atlantic division. I think you'd agree that Atlantic division is fascinating and absolutely stacked. But that Metro division, I agree with you that I think the Washington Capitals are a great candidate to regress just based on how incredible of a season they had last year. But I look at it and I see a completely wide open division, and I wouldn't write the New York Rangers off, but I just like, what's your overall kind of assessment on where the Rangers are at? Because I wouldn't write them off, but I also don't have them kind of in that upper echelon of Stanley Cup contenders either.
Yeah, no, I think that right now that they're probably on paper fourth in the division. I would have Carolina first, New Jersey second, Washington third, and the Rangers fourth. And that fourth is battling with Columbus and the Islanders, I think, as well, who are going to be right there. The Rangers have the talent. They have the goaltending. It's funny, like first day of training camp, Mike Sullivan does a 15-minute press conference. And after the press conference, I joked with him. I said, Mike, when was the last time you did a 15-minute press conference on day one of training camp and you weren't asked about goaltending, right? He said, a long time. Okay. Like it's been but you don't have to ask about it because the Rangers have the goaltending. Now, Shesterkin's got to be better than he was last year. We know that, but the Rangers themselves were not good. They were terrible against the rush last year. They struggled to get out of their own zone at times. So that impacts the goaltending. There's no question about it. There's only so much standing on the head the goalie can do, but they have the talent, and the question, I think, is a little bit on depth, and I think the question is also just on defensive depth too. Like I love their top pair of Gavrikov and Fox, but then their next four, Carson Soucy, Will Borgen, Eero Vakanainen, and Braden Schneider. Like, how does that mix go together? That's why I'm fourth. Like that's why I think they're fourth. But I think that I think they're a playoff team. I think they should be a playoff team. Would it shock me if they weren't a playoff team? No, because then that would mean some team like Columbus or the Islanders would be jumping up, or maybe even on the other side where you look at Florida and Tampa and Toronto, and then you got Montreal and Ottawa and maybe Detroit and Buffalo still trying to push. It could be a 5-3 scenario in the West as well with the Atlantic and the Metro. But I like the Rangers, and I like the timing of Mike Sullivan coming in because the Rangers had a disappointing year last year. Mike Sullivan hasn't made the playoffs in 3 straight years with the Pittsburgh Penguins. There's hunger there. There's a prove it mentality that the coach has too. He's coming into a team that also has to prove something, and that mix could work really well for the Rangers. They've had a good training camp, and I can tell that when I'm around them, I can tell that there's this different type of energy around them. It's very businesslike, and I was talking to Will Cooley actually recently, and Will Cooley was telling me that this training camp was hard. Sidney Crosby told us at the player media tour before training camp, he was asked the question, what piece of advice would you give the Rangers players as they enter training camp? And he said, expect to be pushed. Remember that you're going to be pushed. And I asked Will Cooley that, and he goes, yep, he was right. The Rangers have been pushed a lot. I think the mix could be there. So I have them as a playoff team, but they're a bubble team.
Dan Rosen, NHL.com senior writer, is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Dan, are we all overlooking the Tampa Bay Lightning?
Yes. I'm not.
See you later.
Yeah, I'm not. Listen, let's go over it, right? Okay. Yeah. So the Tampa Bay Lightning, we'll talk about last year, because we can talk about last year understanding that their roster didn't change. Like it really is pretty much the same, minus a depth piece here and there. Okay. They had 4 of the 12 first and second team NHL All-Stars last year. Kucherov was a first teamer. Hedman, Vasilevsky, and Brandon Hagel were second teamers. 4 of 12. That's
a good ratio. 1/3.
Okay. Yeah. They had the leading scorer in the league. They had one of the top defensemen in the league. They had one of the top goalies in the league. You could argue that Cirelli could have been a Selke Trophy winner. Yeah. So they're very good. They're loaded still. And now they're kind of in the weeds a little bit because they haven't been able to get past Florida. However, last year at playoff time, they were getting hurt when the Panthers were getting healthy. and they played each other in the first round, but Oliver Bjorkstrand wasn't available. Yanni Gourde got hurt in game 1. Hedman got hurt in game 1. Hagel played about 6 periods in that series. And the Panthers were getting Tkachuk back, and they were getting healthy, and they were getting rolling again. So it went the opposite way for them. And now there's a hunger there in Tampa to not just prove that they are still a Stanley Cup contender, but that they can knock off the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champs who have been in their way. I don't think anybody should be overlooking the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they're still a really good team. They just haven't been able to be a better team than the Florida Panthers the last couple of years. And that's been their bugaboo, if you will, but that's their motivation now as well.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will be surprised if they win the division this year.
Yeah.
And it's funny for a team that won back-to-back Stanley Cups. I'm talking about the Lightning, not the Panthers. Yeah. It's amazing how you could really argue that they're so underrated, but it's like you said, because they've fallen short against the Florida Panthers the last couple seasons. I know, Dan, we're skipping from conference to conference here. I wanted to ask you about the Utah Mammoth. And obviously we focus a lot on the Central Division with the Jets, and I'm going out on a limb, and I know you guys did your predictions on your podcast, but did the Utah Mammoth do enough in the offseason to make the playoffs in your mind?
I think so. I mean, I think that is their expectation right now, and it's the first time in a long time that franchise from Arizona to Utah has had that expectation. But that's the way it should be. And Clayton Keller told me at the player media tour, he goes, "We have no excuses, like none. Right? We're in Utah. It's not our first year; it's our second year. We have a new home. Have you seen the pictures? Have you seen some of the stuff from their facility?
Just stunning.
From poverty to the penthouse.
It's amazing. This is a team that didn't have a home 2 years ago, right? Like they were playing in a college rink and barely had a home. And I would talk to Bill Armstrong, their general manager, shortly after training camp started. It was actually the second day of camp. And he said to me, he's like, "Yesterday was the first day I felt like an NHL general manager." And, because they have a building, they have a home, they have an identity, they have a future, and there's no excuses, but they also have a lot of talent. Like Keller's coming off a huge year. Dylan Gunther and Logan Cooley have been, they're just on the rise. They're going to keep getting better and better and better. Nick Schmaltz is still an underrated player there, and I think he's a very good player for them. They're well coached. They've got a system in place. They've been playing it a while. They've been together for a while. Like, it's time. I think it's time for the Utah Mammoth to take that step. And now with the addition of Peterka, I think is also key. Another big time addition. Like, this is a guy who I think I think he could be a 40-goal scorer in this league. Like, I think he's that good. And he, unfortunately, has been sort of stuck in Buffalo where they haven't been able to get out of their own way. There have been struggles there. But he was still able to produce in Buffalo, and I think he comes there with a breath of fresh air and a new place and a lot of talent around him. I expect big things from the Utah Mammoth this year. Are they a top 3 team in the division? No, I don't think so. I don't think that they cracked the top 3 in a very difficult division, but I could see them finishing 4th and making it as a wild card.
Dan, last one for you, and it's not going to be your typical give us your Stanley Cup finalist, give us your Stanley Cup winner, but you can give us that if you want.
Okay.
What I was going to ask you, though, is there's always that one team each and every year that comes out of nowhere that nobody says is going to be a playoff team, and all of a sudden they improve by leaps and bounds. Last year it was the Montreal Canadiens that they sort of came really from the bottom, and they became a playoff team when nobody really expected it. From your perspective, who's that team this year? Is there one team that you sort of are keeping an eye on as this is a team that is ready to take a step forward when nobody is really paying much attention to them doing so?
Well, I look at I think it's the Calgary Flames. I think it's the Calgary Flames, and I look at opportunity as well. It's Vegas and Edmonton are the top 2 teams in that division. Mm-hmm. I'm not sold on the LA Kings. Maybe the LA Kings have a bump because of this Kopitar Swan Song season, and they go all in, and it's a win now team, and it is. It should be, because Ken Holland's not there to rebuild, and Kopitar's in his last year, right? But I'm not sold. I did not like what I saw at the end of last season from the LA Kings. I'll tell you that much. I don't know that Darcy Kemper can do what he did again. I just don't know it. The Calgary Flames, they've got talent. They've got experience. I like Dustin Wolf in net. I think that they finally have a guy that they can rely on and trust to start 60 games. I think that's so important for this team. I like the coach. I liked a lot of what you saw some glimpses of it last season. I look at Calgary and I said, maybe they have some young guys who are ready to pop, and they've still got some veteran guys there who can put up career years. They're not done yet with that. So I look at Calgary as opportunity there, especially in a Pacific Division where I know about Edmonton and Vegas, but I don't know if I trust LA. I don't trust Vancouver. I like Anaheim improving, but I don't know if Anaheim improves to that degree. San Jose, Seattle. I mean, like there's opportunity there I see for the Calgary Flames. And that's a team I think a lot of people are probably not looking at because it's easy to pick LA. It is, but I'm going to go Calgary as third in that division.
Dan Rosen, senior writer, NHL.com. It's almost like Christmas Eve with the eve of the season right around the corner. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your insight. We'll do it again real soon, Dan. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Cheers, Dan. Thank you.
Dan Rosen, senior writer, NHL.com, our guest.
I like Dan picking Calgary there. I like that.
Yeah, Calgary, look, they were 1 point behind. They tied the St. Louis Blues. If it wasn't for regulation wins, then they would have been a playoff team themselves. So it's not it's not unreasonable to expect the Calgary.
Well,
Flames
it's the same thing with Utah making
forward.
the jump. Obviously, it's like not the same situation, different division.
Right.
But I mean, you look at the Flames last night, and yes, it's preseason.
Yeah.
But the Flames always play the Jets hard, always. And they're very, very well coached.
And Dustin Wolf is a hell of a goalie.
And they've got the goaltending. That's been what they haven't been able to basically figure out since Jacob Markstrom, right? Like that.
And
that's
even
been
Markstrom
the issue.
wasn't great there, though. I mean, that was a bad team in front of him. But
Yes.
I mean, you're right. Though, it's been some downtime in Calgary, but definitely I think the arrow would be pointing upwards as of late, trajectory wise. We'll take our final commercial break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the Saturday morning edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
You know where Dave went, by the way?
We don't, but that's okay. I'm sure he's up to something that's he had to take care of something. It's okay. We trust Dave M's judgment. Drew Mindell, Ezzy Ginsburg, the deadweight Manuk is not here. Much more to come on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now, you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
All righty, we're back Saturday morning. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We remind everybody, Thursday afternoon, home opener Thursday, 12 noon, City Place, live on location, special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're previewing the Jets and the Dallas Stars. If you're in the downtown portion of our fair city, come on by City Place, the food court, second floor. I'll be there. Ezzy will be there. Dave will be there. Producer Tim will be there. Cast of characters will be there. We're going to be talking about the Jets and the Stars coming up Thursday afternoon, 12 noon. Looking forward to being back live on location throughout the season with our friends at City Place. Right around the corner, Ezzy. It's here, the start of the season. What I think we're going to do, you did a great effort in producing some 50-50 questions, over-under questions. We'll put a pin in them. We'll do them next week, or maybe even on Thursday. We can do them during the.
As long as you don't put a pin on me, Drew, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
I don't want to be
on you.
pinned.
I'm not going to make you. I do have an Ezzy voodoo doll, but I haven't been using it lately, so I'm not going to start using it now.
It's in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah, just whenever you bother me enough, I have to start. I have to do that. Big thank you to 7JP7B. For the donation of some cash to us. You don't need to do that, of course, but we do appreciate it. Greatest show, greatest chat. Thank you, hardworking IC boys. Go Jets, go. Go Jays, go. Yes, indeed. Looking forward to the start of the ALDS, the NLDS series as well. That should be fun as in addition to the start of the Jet season coming up on Thursday. So we're lots coming. The post-game shows, that means they're right around the corner. That starts Thursday night after the Jets and the Stars. Say goodbye to your friends. Say goodbye to your families. We have 82 at least post-game shows right around the corner, and it starts Thursday night. So Thursday at noon, then Thursday night after the Jets and the Stars, we are going to be live back here on the Illegal Curve YouTube channel for the Illegal Curve post-game show. Which means if you haven't already done so, you got to be smashing that like button right now, folks. You need to be subscribing to the channel. That means that you turn your notifications on, and whenever we go live, you get notified so that you never miss a minute of what yours truly, what Ezzy, what Dave, what the chat, what we all bring to the table here in this fine menagerie that we call the Illegal Curve Hockey Show and the Illegal Curve post-game show. So really looking forward to it.
So are you saying that we're a menagerie à trois?
No, I would not, in fact, ever use that terminology altogether to describe us. And I regret ever hearing you say anything along those lines. And we're going to have to get Illegal Curve HR to have a sit down with you about what's appropriate and what's inappropriate when it comes to on-air.
Drew, can you imagine if we had an Illegal Curve HR? Like
they would quit immediately.
We would have all been arrested within the first month of doing this show.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But at least we do it with a smile on our face. So there's something to be said for that. Big thank you to Dan Rosen for joining us this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. That was a fun chat, a fun look around the entirety of the NHL as we delve deep into the start of the 25-26 season. I guess we'll save our predictions as well for Thursday. So hold that. Thursday, 12 noon, we'll give our season predictions where we will put on our prognosticator's hat and say this team is going to be the Stanley Cup champion and this team is going to lose in the Stanley Cup final and all the things associated with that. So we can look forward to doing that on Thursday night and Thursday during the day at City Place. Big thank you, of course, to our friends at Play Now. They're the title sponsor of this show, but it's all of our sponsors and all of our supporters and all of you that make this show a possibility. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Pete Zedlacker at Rumors tonight. He's been selling out most of the shows this week. There's a few tickets left for $9.45. Get your tickets, rumorscomedyclub.com. Holt Dental, keeping your smile nice and bright. City Place will be there on Thursday. Our friends at Wheatland Hockey, they're a great training program. If you have a youngin who's involved in skills development in hockey and you want people to help train him up, but do so in the right way, improve him on the ice, but also making him the best well-rounded individual he can be, boy or girl, make them into better people as humans. Our friends at Wheatland Hockey are where you should be focusing your energies. And of course, our friends at Boston Pizza got to nail down some Boston Pizza games. That's on my list of things to do this week. Support all these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. Ezzy, thanks for joining me this morning. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a lot of fun. We had Dave on for about half an hour. So we hope it's okay with Dave, obviously. But yeah, and this is the best time of year. We always say this, right? Like you've got the MLB, ALDS obviously starting today with the Jays and the Yankees. Start of the NHL regular season is just days away. You've got the NFL, you've got the CFL. I mean, it's the best time of year. NBA's coming up.
That's right. October is the only month where you get all of the big sports playing at the exact same time. You're guaranteed to have all the big sports playing at the same time. So enjoy it, folks. We will see you next Saturday. But of course, before that, we will see you Thursday at noon and then Thursday for the post-game show. Keep it locked and loaded on to here, the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. For Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.